Hello, and welcome to the Books Uncovered podcast, the podcast brought to you by Fulcrum Publishing, where we explore the world of books and the people that make up the publishing and the book industry. I'm Sam Shinta, publisher of Fulcrum Publishing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Kateri Kramer, Fulcrum's marketing director. Hi, Kateri. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Doing well. It's after getting almost a foot of snow 2 days ago, we just got a bunch of rain and warmer weather, so all the snow is gone. So it is just really, really, really strange here. But
Yeah.
welcome to spring.
Such as spring.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we usually have more of like a regular spring and then into summer. This has just been a weird, although everything's green, so it is
That's
kind of
nice.
nice. It's like it
Yeah.
fertilized everything.
Good.
Well, our guest today, this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to be going back to the bookstore world today. So our guest today is Matt Aragon, Shafi Birdsong. Matt has worked as a bookseller for over 5 years. He manages West Side Books in Denver, located in the historic Highlands neighborhood in West Denver. He himself is a budding writer and also graduated with a BS in music at the University of Colorado, Denver. Born and raised in Denver, it's been a wild ride of gentrification, change, and working in one of the few used and new bookstores in the Denver community. Welcome, Matt. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. I'm
Well, we're
excited.
so happy to have you. How are things going there at West Side Books?
Things are good. We're busy today, so that's good. Yeah.
And so you mentioned in your bio a wild ride of gentrification, change in that whole West Side area. So that Highlands area continues to evolve, I'm guessing.
Yes. So the funny thing is we're West Side Bucks, right? But it's actually the north side of Denver.
Oh,
So
okay,
it's kind
gotcha.
of it's a funny thing. It's just a funny little thing that we know that we're in the north side, but we're West Side Bucks. Because one time she was on the west side, but our store moved.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, I always think of Highlands as kind of I don't live in Denver anymore. I've always thought of
Yeah.
it as to the west of downtown, but I guess you're right. It is kind of the northwest of downtown there.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. And what I meant by that comment, so I actually went to high school in the area. I went to North High School, and I used to shop at West Side Books. Just kind of peruse and probably never buy anything. So I was a teenager. And what I meant by that statement, the gentrification, is you can see if you visit this area, all the stores that have changed or ended, yet we remain. 25 years in business. We just celebrated last year. So I kind of feel like there's a few of us on this street that are the resistance. There's us, there's Pizza Alley, there's some other businesses that have just been here a while. So we're and not all the gentrification is bad. I'm not an I don't hate change. I do feel like the resistance in the neighborhood, especially with what we do, which is used and new books. There's not many of us around in the state.
Well, yeah, we're very lucky here in our backyard. We've got a new and used bookstore as well. And I think those are about my favorite kind of stores, right? Because you get the best of all worlds. You get all the great new curated stuff, as well as just these, thousands of books that are just piled high, and you can pretty much always find something you're looking for in a store like yours.
Yeah, or something you're not looking for.
Well, or something you're not looking for. I remember the last time I was in town, I actually went to the store and spent a little time in the used book section, but mostly was up front with the new books. And for example, you've got a wonderful books and translation section that I was just finding all sorts of things that I just didn't recognize, and then your fiction section, again, very highly curated. I always love those bookstores where you go in and it's unexpected titles. It's not the things that you'll find everywhere. It's not all the bestsellers. You can tell that there's a lot of care that goes into the books that you bring into the store.
Yeah, and that really means a lot for you to recognize that. That's, we try to be a little different. We realized people could go to Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and Target and get all the bestsellers and even King Supers. And we tailor our store. We try to tailor it to new people, to the neighborhood. So we appreciate that comment.
Do you guys have a process for like picking those new releases or choose like how do you know what used books to accept and which ones like will sell and which ones won't? Or is it just instinct?
So, used book world, we kind of go by what's asked for. So a lot of books that are for school or the popular titles or they've come out in the last 10 years. So we have a sense, what are people asking for? What do we need? And we have a buyback program that the store owner has been doing for a long time. She's been in the book business for over 40 years, Lois Harvey. It is kind of her, I don't want to say secret, but she is the only person that buys the books at the store. So it's kind of what we all kind of work together to manifest what we need. Like I always want used kids books, Harry Potter, like popular fiction, science fiction, all kinds of stuff. And then of course we also deal with rare and antiquarian books too, which Lois is the most knowledgeable, and we are knowledgeable too as staff, but I kind of leave that up to her with when it comes to those rare books. We've got like old Wizard of Oz, old Steinbeck, and that's something that I think is attractive about West Side Books, is that we have those rare and unusual books that are hard
And
to
first
find.
editions. You guys have a crazy collection of first editions.
Yeah, and a lot of people are selling those, and they're fine with letting it go. I never want to be, what's the word? Shiesty, like, oh, they don't know they have a first. We usually tell them it's a first, but it's not what you think. I mean, if it was a first Harry Potter, sure, but if it's a first Barbara Kingsolver that just came out, it's not,
Right.
We want it, but it's not going to be, you're not going to get a lot of money for it. Is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, no, I completely understand.
Mhm.
Do you remember like the weirdest or the coolest or the used book that came in that you were most excited about?
So we once got this really old, I don't know if it's a comic book or a graphic novel of the Tales of the Crypt guy. Do you know that show?
I don't.
So it used to be a comic, and
Oh.
it's the old Tales of the Crypt, and we had it in comic form. And I was like, oh, that is so cool to me, because I like horror and weird stuff. So I'm always there for that. And then sometimes we have really cool old Edgar Rice Burroughs, like Tarzan, old not old, but original Japanese Murakami. Those are fun stuff we have. So yeah, really cool stuff like that.
What is the blend of your business in terms of new and used, approximately? How does that play out for you?
So I won't give you the long-winded answer, but I will say that COVID changed our store. So we started selling more new books. But predominantly, I dare say, used books are maybe 75 to 60% of my store. But I am selling more new books than used, dollar amount wise. And that could just be because they're more expensive. But we are seeing, people want what they want. They want new books, and they are they are ordering them from us, which is very helpful to our business. We appreciate that.
Oh, so in addition to what you're carrying, people are actually ordering and then you obtain the book for them. So they're using you as a book service essentially.
Yes, and we're more than happy to be that service. If you could order a book with us and get it next week, and that's what you prefer, we love to do that.
And do you think that's all a result of COVID, or do you think there's something else happening there?
I want to say a mixture, because I think with COVID, you had this unity of the indie stores, indie bookstores going, we need to survive during this. Can we ask our customers to order with us? Will you support, customers, will you support us? We will support you. There was a time where Amazon wasn't, and we know that's our big competitor. We don't joke about it. Amazon wasn't shipping books because they weren't essential. There was a small period of time where people almost were forced to come to us because Amazon had deemed that a non-essential item to sell. So there was this brief moment where the indie bookstores were kind of like, "Ooh, we have an upper hand." That we still have Ingram and Penguin. We can order direct. So yeah, I will say and just with the businesses closing, other businesses, it was an aftershock where other customers and neighborhood folks were like, I don't want my favorite business to close. I walk in there with my kid, So we did start receiving a lot of support after that.
I think you guys do kind of along those lines. You guys do a really spectacular job of this kind of building a sense of community that not all indie bookstores have. I'm just thinking about even like you guys like super duper support local authors like Kali Fajardo Amstein. And I know she like grew up in the neighborhood and kind of writes about that and stuff, but you guys are always really supporting the work she does and other authors, and you carry local authors and stuff like that. I'm wondering if you can just speak to your like personal philosophy about the relationship between bookstores and communities.
Yeah, I love that question. It really dawned on me managing the store for a couple of years where I was like, I'm seeing other bookstores do working with authors, and I'm a writer myself, a budding writer. I don't have anything published, but I thought about what can I do to help the community, whether it be reaching out to Regis or just talking with authors in the area like Kali, Erica Krause, Erica Worth, just just other people, Nancy Vieira. And I find that when you build that community, for example, I'll mention Nancy Vieira. She's a poet and wrote a memoir. We took a chance on this author who, was unknown. And when I had an event with her, she brought a room full of people and they bought her book. And to me, if you're an author and the bookstore can work together and bring that community, and I as a manager can sense that people are going to buy the book, then I would love to work with them and bring that community to us. And I think there's a lot of writers in Denver that feel like loose cannons. They write a book, it's out, and they either don't know, don't do the legwork, don't, and I find it's a unity between the store and the author to reach out to the community. Get my book out there. I wrote a book. so and so on 32nd Avenue, I'm that lady that's down the street. I just think it's so cool. It's so cool that we have these up and coming writers, unknown or known, and just to bring a little attention. And it's in the end, it's everything. It's me bringing my store up. It's me saying I'm here in the neighborhood, guys. I'm surrounded by yoga and beauty stuff. That's what I meant by the gentrification. So yeah, I'm sorry if I trailed off. I can touch on
I
any other
totally
point.
understand where you're going. And it's nice to, like, from a publisher standpoint, it's nice to hear that bookstores are really invested in that, like, personal connection that they can make with an author, because I think that, I mean, not only does it just strengthen the community and the bookstore, but I think authors often don't realize that, like, when you don't make those personal connections, oftentimes, like, booksellers don't, like, get that little push. I mean, they're getting free books all the time, right? Booksellers get lots of ARCs, they're reading constantly, that kind of thing. So authors are kind of in some ways competing for your reading time. If they step in and make a personal connection with you, it might mean that their book goes to the top of your list, and by next week you're like ham selling it. And I think a lot of authors don't realize that that is an incredibly valuable connection to make. They think, like, it's up to the publishers to make that connection. It doesn't matter if they stop in bookstores and meet their booksellers, like that kind of thing. And I wish more authors made an effort to do that, because I think it'd make everything better.
It really would. It would. Me too.
Yeah, so you're serving the community obviously by featuring these local authors, and you of course do signings for them. Do you do other community events at the store that allow for the community to come together?
So we try. I will say we are a very small store. I have, let's see, there's owner, there's manager, and then there's about 3, 4 staff. So what's different between my store versus a bigger store is I don't have the staff with titles. Like, I don't have a book buyer. We do everything. We all do it. So the community part, yes, I have ordered for schools. I have tried to reach out to the schools in the area. That's something I'm trying to do. It's a little difficult with my small staff, but I am really reaching for the stars to get involved in the community. And I will tell you one way we're involved right now is the Independent Bookstore Day Passport, which a lot of local bookstores are doing right now in Colorado. I think it was a couple bookstores, one of them, Second Star to the Right, started it. And what they did is, you visit a bookstore, you get you get a star, and if you get like a row or something, you can turn that in. So that's a little bit of a community effort. But yes, I would love to be more involved in the future, maybe like a school fair or something. But right now, our little involvements are usually ordering for schools or offices at a discount with the publisher. But I would like to reach out more to the community.
Yeah, that is great, and that's amazing that you're able to do some of that community support. What I was thinking though, do you do things like, say, I know some indie bookstores are doing things like poetry reading nights or sponsoring book groups, things like that, that create a space as well, that you can use that space as a place for gathering of book lovers, or is that just beyond the capacity at this point?
It's something I'm considering. I would like to do that. And we do have a patio. So there's a restaurant there though, but they're closed on Mondays. So it's something I considered pitching to the owner. The delicate balance, and I'll be very honest, is that when you do things like that, we have to make sure we make some kind of money. And I don't want to charge for those events, but I want people to come in and buy books, and I have to figure out how to do that, because I don't want to charge them, for a poetry night or a music night, which I would love to do. The owner's partner actually is a luthier in Denver, so he works on bass, cellos, and we have a little connection with music, with our music industry friends, with her and with me. So I'd love to do like poetry or open mic, and that's something I'm considering for the summer, Sam. So I am hoping to do that. It has been a little overwhelming with my little staff. Just, getting coverage for that night or something like that. But it's something on my brain.
Of course, yeah, and it's just one of the things that we're noticing with some indies is they because there's just such a lack of those spaces where people can gather, that if they're able to do it, but you're absolutely right, you've got to balance that with the ability for you to actually be a business as well, right? So it's great if people can come in, but it's great if people come in and while they're there, they're buying books, they're browsing, they're taking advantage of the store being there, so that it makes financial sense as well.
Yeah.
So are you noticing any general trends in terms of the sort of things that people are looking for, say in the new book world? What sort of books people are asking about, what people are buying?
Yeah, there's a lot. So trends, my favorite. A lot of romance, a lot of easy reads. I use that word loosely. It's not like it's not a good book, but I felt personally that I became a fan of romance, and it was just like, queer romance, like Alexis Hall. Um, so easy to read and so just lighthearted in this dark world. Um, so
Hmm.
romance, beach reads, I kind of call them. I don't mean to mention her in this category, but Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of our top selling authors. I consider her a quick read. Colleen Hoover, I haven't read her yet, but we know she's famous in the book world. Sarah J. Maas has broken the glass ceiling with fantasy, and I'll say that fantasy has its clientele, right? It's niche, but thanks to people like Cassandra Clare and Sarah J. Maas and T. Kingfisher, they're just and TJ Klune, they are bursting open the doors for having, I'll say, literary readers go into that fantasy realm. So fantasy, uh, what else? A lot of, well, I don't think this ever changes, but historical fiction. It has just risen, in my opinion, to the point where we don't have a historical fiction section. And we were like, should we make one? Like people are asking, and then we're like, who goes here? And we have a kind of a joke that like, if it has gilded edges and if it has vines on the cover and if it
It
has a
also
girl
has to
walking
have
away.
the back of a woman walking away
Mm-hmm.
on the
Girl
cover.
walking away.
Yeah, in an empty street, dimly lit.
An Eiffel Tower in the background. Anything Paris. So yes, a lot of historical fiction is selling. And then of course in the nonfiction world, there's a lot of new nature books that are big. Self-help's always big. I'm a big self-help person. So
Do you
that's
think
kind of
that
some of the trends.
Oh, I was just curious if you think that just based off of like those three categories, if we're talking, I'm going to put all of your fiction into like a plot driven category, and then nature and then self-help. Do you think all of this was like the pandemic was the catalyst, and we're just like seeing the continued desire for that. Like I know people wanted that like escapism read, and then people were like finding out that going out into nature was one of the only things they were allowed to do. And then they were finding a lot of value. And then obviously the self-help is kind of self-explanatory with COVID.
I will say, yeah. I mean, I think it was a total domino effect. Puzzles too. I have a lot of new readers, a lot of adults coming in, I'm not really a reader. I didn't read since I was in grade school, and I want something light. And I usually recommend something easy like TJ Klune or Neil Gaiman. Yeah, getting a lot of new readers, a lot of people coming back, and I will say it is probably the aftershocks of COVID.
What are the like top 5 books that you hand sell? And can you tell people what hand selling is if they don't know what that is?
Yeah. So hand selling is a very important term to booksellers. It means you have your arsenal of books that you sell because you know them well. So my arsenal of books, my hand sell books, I sell Woman of Light by Kali Farhado Einstein, which is deemed historical fiction about Colorado in the 1930s, and indigenous women. I sell, so that's an easy read when a lot of guys will come in and ask for a gift for their girlfriend, and I will tell them about this book, and they'll usually say, okay, that sounds good. And not to be sexist, because I do think men should read that book too. So I will say that. Another one is, I think it's called The Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. It's another book that is, yeah, I just read it. My mom gave it to me. It's a light-hearted book. It's not too involved. It's got romantic aspect without being gross, too romancy. What's
So
another
heartwarming.
one?
Like even you bringing
Yeah,
it up makes me want to reread it again. And the audiobook is like, whew, it's so good.
I did the audiobook too. Yeah, both. Another one is Dust Child by Quay Van Nguyen, and I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, but she's a Vietnamese writer, and it just came out. It's about Vietnamese children trying to find their other half. So they're called half Asians because some of um, their parents were in the war, and they, got people pregnant and left. And she took 9 years to write this novel, and it's based on fact, and it's just astounding. Dust Child, and I'm not too knowledgeable about history, so it really helped me learn more about the Vietnam War, because I didn't know that stuff. Let's see. There's a book we sell a lot in nonfiction called How to Resist Amazon by Danny Kane, and he is a bookseller owner in Kansas, and it just talks about why you should shop at the stores that were meant for them, like why you should shop at bookstores versus like a big name like Amazon, because you'll just perpetually feed the machine. And if you want your favorite businesses to continue, then you will shop with them. So that's a nonfiction book I'd recommend. And then another one, I'll use a poetry book, which is Silhouette by Nancy Vieira. She's a local author, which I mentioned. The cover is beautiful. It's pink. The poetry is beautifully written. It's quick. A lot of us, well, I'll just speak for myself. As a bookseller, I like quick reads. I like easy reads. It is daunting how many books I am expected to read. So I don't get to all of them. So I like books that are concise and ready. And if I'm ready for a giant Stephen King, then I'm ready for a giant Stephen King. But I like the slim reads, so that the slim touching reads that are good for me and for customers, because we all know that a lot of us don't have time to read. And however you read, which is audiobooks, we partnered with libro.fm. They're local. I mean, they're not local, but they work with indie bookstores. So however you read, we're here for it, digital, audio, print, all of it.
So we know, well, the news has obviously shared that it's been a rough couple of years for independent booksellers, and certainly a rough decade. We saw the number of indie bookstores decrease. Pandemic certainly didn't help things, and yet now it feels this year and last like maybe independent bookstores are thriving again. Are you seeing that? Are you feeling that?
So yes, I'm torn about using thrive, because I don't want to say we're just hanging in there. This is our dead time. So we know every year, January to April, it's kind of a dead time in a lot of retail. But awareness wise, yes, I will say I'm thriving, because we're reaching out more. Our Instagram followers are going up. We're kind of working on TikTok. And I would say I'm thriving in the social media sense and getting my foot traffic in the store. I have a lot of customers that are coming in that have never been here. And I'd love to touch on that, which is why I think it's so important to be involved in the community. If I have these physical chains of, hey, I went to that bookstore reading, 1 year ago, and it was really cool, and I remembered it, that customer could come back. And to me, that's so important that that customer comes back. I have customers that come from Nebraska and Virginia once a year, and they're like, hi, I'm so-and-so from Nebraska, and I'm loading up. And they buy boxes of books because they just built that relationship with us. So yes, I'd like to say that we are, we're maintaining in this neighborhood, a very expensive neighborhood. So we're maintaining, we're working on being ourselves and also tailoring to what this neighborhood wants. So I do a little of both, and that goes back to that question of how do we buy, what are we buying? And I am buying what the neighborhood asks. I want Emily Henry. I'll order it next week. I want the Hunger Games became popular again, so we're having that in stock. Just things like that. We're trying to listen to what we can do for the neighborhood. Let's get kids reading, let's get those cool kid books in, like all kinds of stuff.
Oh, that's great. And I love this idea that, and I think this is characteristic of the best independent booksellers, not only that you're highly curated, but that you do respond to what the people in your neighborhood and in your community are looking for. And so, but also being able to carry that book that person from Nebraska or that person from Virginia is looking for when they're coming to town. It's a hard balance, I can imagine, but it's just wonderful that you're able to create that space that serves the locals, but also is welcoming to the folks that are coming into town.
Yeah.
Well, that is excellent. I'm just so happy to hear that. It's the more we talk with independent booksellers and hear these stories, it just is such a warm feeling that we're getting, because it tells you that, well, the publishing industry is maybe once again thriving, where it was a tough, and it's never going to be easy, right? It's never easy to be an independent publisher. It's never easy to be an independent bookseller, but at least it feels like the rewards are possible again, and they we can all navigate that a little bit easier.
Yeah, if I may speak on the relationship with publishers, um, I do tell my customers, I have direct relationships with certain publishers. I can get that book for you. It helps. It helps support me, it helps support you, and it helps keep these publishers in business too. And I have been personally trying to build relationships with publishers, going, hey, we're this little bookstore in Denver. Um, just notice us. Penguin Random House, all those others. I was so glad, Fulcrum Press came in and introduced themselves. We're so excited. I don't know why publishers come in, actually, people that work for them, and I'll say ninja shop. They just ninja shop because they don't name drop. And I'm like, why don't you name drop? You should be like, I work in the publishing industry. Like I kind of always do that when I go to bookstores, like, ooh, I work at a bookstore too. I understand.
That's so
I
funny. I actually got chided by a bookstore owner the other day when I was talking with her on the phone because I'm a ninja shopper. And she said, well, how come you didn't like just tell me who you were and make a big deal about it? And it's like, well, because you're doing your business and I don't want to create this awkwardness. And I want to be a consumer and don't want to give you this hard sell or anything. And she's like, no, we love it when book people are in our store and we can share those experiences. So I have to be less of a ninja shopper too. I get it.
it's totally your preference. It's just
No,
know,
but
I
I
think
see
we
that
love
it
that.
helps to build that community. I
Hmm.
I just think sometimes we're just a little worried that, we don't want the bookstores to feel like, okay, now that we're in here, you need to show us where all of our books are. Because we know how the industry works too. We understand that bookstores they know their business like we know our business. And so I just have to be a little more extroverted about that. That's a good
Yeah,
reminder.
yeah.
Well, this now this talking about books and talking about the book world. This is our favorite part of every podcast where we talk about what are we reading, the hey, what you're reading section. And Kelly just does a wonderful job every podcast of directing us with a good question to think about. And the question this time around is, are there any books that have either been released in the past 3 months or are scheduled to be released in the next 3 months that you are excited about?
So I I hate to repeat myself, but I really liked Dust Child, and that just was released by Kuei Fan Win, and that came out, I think, last month, and I would really recommend it. It's if you have never experienced anything about Vietnam or don't know about missing parents, or if you're I my family's from Pakistan, so we kind of have an Asian community that I'm a part of with other Asian people, and it's it's interesting to read that book and realize what other half Asian or mixed race people have dealt with, trying to find their parent, or they do find the parent and they're dead, or they don't want nothing to do with them. So I would once again bring up that Dust Child book. Um, I will admit I don't want to say I'm the worst, but I'm really bad at reading future releases. We do get piled with arcs every year, and I really depend on my staff to tell me about books. Or Edelweiss, we look up on Edelweiss, what's hot, what's selling. Um, and sometimes our customers, I'll pass along some arcs to a valued customer and they'll report back to me. We are really excited for the new TJ Klune. I feel like a broken record, but I haven't read it yet. I have it
Didn't
on
know
my
there was a new
shelf.
one.
I think it's releasing, yeah, next week. Well, whenever this podcast airs, but April 25th. Uh, I believe the new TJ Klune is being released. The title escapes me, but I think that author has grabbed me for life. I mean, that might be my new Neil Gaiman, maybe.
Awesome. Those are great recommendations. Yeah, and you don't have to have had read them. I haven't read either of mine that are coming out soon. So what about you, Kateri? What do you got in terms of recent or upcoming releases that you're excited about?
I picked two. So one that's already come out, it's called Wildscape. These are also, it's confusing. This is by Princeton Review Press. The other one is by Princeton University Press. Different, but this one is, I've already read some of it, but not all of it. And it's just really interesting about like the ways that our senses are brought into nature and in gardens, and the value of having a garden or a landscape that brings wildlife in and what they need and that kind of thing. And it's both like story oriented and narrative driven, and then there's a lot of scientific stuff woven in as well. And the cover's really nice. I like the cover a lot. The other one that I picked is coming out, I want to say this is a May release. May 23. This is the one by Princeton University Press. It's called Night Vision: Seeing Ourselves Through Dark Moods. And it's like my favorite type of essay. It's that like same thing, narrative driven, and then there's like the psychological stuff mixed in there. It got really, really good feedback when they first sent it out. And it's like about anxiety. It's not very uplifting. It's about anxiety and depression and anger and stuff like that, and what those moods say about us. But I think it's also interesting because it's not one of those books that's like, oh, this is like how you don't be anxious. It's about kind of becoming self-aware as you go through those experiences that I think everybody does. So yeah, those are my
Wonderful
picks. How about you, Sam?
So I've also got two. One just got released this week and one is coming out. And I try not to read a lot about books. I've not read advanced copies of these, so I just know a little bit about them, but enough to get me excited. The first is called The Wager, which is the newest book by David Grann. And I just absolutely love David Grann's work. Now, obviously, people know Killers of the Flower Moon, or they know The Lost City of Z, but I really, really enjoy his New Yorker writing. He just does these wonderful pieces. And one of my all-time favorite pieces in the New Yorker was a piece he did a few years ago called The White Darkness, or was converted into a book, but it was about an explorer. And it just was one of the most powerful stories I'd ever read. It was just so moving, and it just kind of shook something in me that was quite wonderful. So I'll follow David Grann anywhere he goes. This is the subtitle, A Tale of Shipwrecks, Murder or Mystery and Murder. And it tells the story of this British ship that was involved on a spy mission in the 1740s when Britain was at war with Spain. And just everything that happens with the crew. So it just looks like a fun and wonderful book where I'll learn a lot. And then the other is another author I just really cherish, the German author Jenny Erpenbeck, who's done some lovely books with New Directions mostly. Her newest book is called Kairos. I believe that's how it's pronounced, Kairos. That comes out in June, and it is a love story set, or a complicated love story set against the fall of East Germany, and set in East Berlin. And so the setting to me is wonderful, but she is just such a terrific author who really is able to tell these great human stories with wonderful insight into our world and our character. So really looking forward to that one as well.
Cool.
Well, this has been fun, Matt. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us, and thank you again for everything that you are doing at West Side Books, and building that sense of community and being a bastion of independent bookselling, and as you said, kind of being the one of the defenders of the old Denver up there in the Highlands neighborhood. That is just terrific. And just keep doing that great work. And I look forward to popping in the next time I'm in town, and I will not be a ninja shopper that time.
Yes. Thank you all so much for having me. And, I will say that thanks to Kateri frequently stopping in, we have been looking more on Fulcrum Press, to order. So that really does help. And in publisher land, if you hear this, it does help putting a face to the people that work in this company, because we are in this together, all of us, booksellers, consumers, publishers. So it really helps to know that there's a person on the other side and not just a robot putting your books in a box.
You're here. Agreed completely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.